All right, last lab. Nice. In this lab, we'll go over the final bits over here, which is, well, it's not final bits. It's just reviews of good practices and things that may potentially happen in your last test. There's a chance. It's a chance that it may pop up. So we'll start off. We're gonna go through some good ways to debug. We're gonna go through some logical problems that you may have not thought about before. We're gonna go through and see what's the best practice to apply logics here and there, and how the UI relates to everything all together. How the design and contents relates to everything all together. Oops, what am I doing? That's not what we want. Let me close this. All right, so let's start. How proxy are all related in the last lab. And then afterwards, we'll go through the very last scrums. So we'll just set up a simple proxy. We don't know we're doing it, but let's just set it up. Doesn't have to have anything, so there's nothing inside right now. And doesn't have to have anything, so there's nothing in here. Just getting prepared to make sure that they are all ready to go when the time comes. So by now you should be very familiar with setting this up. Hopefully, it's very simple. It's just a few lines. As I said, if you still have trouble setting it up, maybe you want to set it up before the actual test and just use that as your template for your file. This setup isn't the most important. What's important is how you build your logic and architecture around your user interface. Okay, let's go over exactly what we're gonna build. We'll have 4 buttons, so I'm gonna wrap it around a div over here. 4 button, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll also have a div. We'll call it status. And let's pretend for a sec here that we are in charge of building a safe, like in a hotel. Has anyone seen a safe in a hotel before? Has anyone used a safe in a hotel before? You have to press a combination, and then that's your combination that's going to open your safe. So let's say we're building something that's similar, except with 4 buttons only. Now, without going too complicated, there's a lot of things that goes on. But more importantly right now is that there is a UI that updates for us, and that is this status over here. Whenever we press something right, the status will tell us that you got it right. Whenever we press something wrong, the status will tell us that we've got something wrong. Or whenever we're pressing something, the status will tell us that we are pressing on something. So in our app.js, for sure, part of the UI that changes is the status. And it'll start off as blank. And for sure, in here, there's going to be a if statement to check when the status in our package is changed. Because if it's changed, then we need to update the status UI. So we'll start with the UI function. We don't know what the interactions are like yet. So we'll start with the UI function. Change function change status UI. And all it is it's going to grab the right elements, in this case. The status, and change its inner HTML to whatever we assign it to be. Meaning that in here, we'll use that function. Change status UI. Take whatever value was changed and apply it to the user interface. Afterwards, we're going to need one for all 4 of our buttons. Now, we could name it function change status, because that's what we've been doing all these other labs. But technically, the buttons doesn't change status, so it'll be a bad naming convention. What we do want to do is think of a better name for it. So these are your state interaction functions. And let's call it handle button. Makes more sense since we're handling what happens to the button when we interact with it. A good practice to do is always to console log something right away to make sure your button actually works. So that when we connect it with the interface through an interaction, such as on click, we can check if it's actually being clicked on. Handle button. And we're going to pass the element over and do that for all 4 of our buttons. And test. Make sure to inspect this on and do our testing. Hopefully they all say clicked. Now, another good practice to have is to always log out the argument that you're asking for. This is an argument that you're asking for. You want to know exactly how the data is flowing through your system. So this is the argument you're asking for. Let's also log it out, comma L. And we would do one here as well, console.log val. Change status val, like so. So console.log is very important, as you can see. You always want to put 1 in the beginning to see what you're capturing. And at the end, if you made any changes through the progress. So here, I know that I'm going to pass something. So I want to make sure I know exactly what I'm capturing, what I'm passing through this function. In this case, it's the button, because the button element is the item that's being passed over. And you can see that it's the actual button that gets logged out. The actual button that gets logged out. And let's just make it simple for now. Let's just say let's change the status to, let's change the status to you've clicked a button. You've clicked a button. So whenever you use the procs that you use to make a proxy, that's when you want to do a user interface change. If you don't need to do a user interface change, then you would really never use this procs over here. The only time you want to do it is if you want to have a user interface change. In this case, the user interface change is you've clicked a button. And you can see the information flow on the console, and that's something that's important to always grasp at. Clicked, and the element that was clicked on from this console log, change status, you've clicked on a button from the UI. So you know your information is flowing from the button to the function to the UI function and updating through the UI function. These are all really good practices to always have. Now, if you're very comfortable and you know for sure that that's what you're passing, you can necessarily skip 18 and so on, but it's a good practice to always have. If you're unsure of what you're doing, always console.log out something plus anything that you want to that you passed over as an argument. But we don't want it just to be as simple as procs.status equals to you've clicked a button. We want it to be able to differentiate the button that's clicked on and give a different status based on that. So right now, we have 4 buttons that's using handle button. How do we know that they're different? What's something that tells us that they're different? The number 1, 2, 3, and 4. How do we access that number? Well, we can test l.inner HTML was what I heard someone say. So this inputs inner HTML. So we get clicked with the button and 1, clicked with the button and 2, clicked with the button and 3, clicked with the button and 4. So now that we know the differentiation, we can do some simple if statement. Like, for example, if l.inner HTML is equivalent to the character 1, not a number, a character. Because you can see here it's black and not blue, meaning anything, so meaning that it's a character. The reason why it's a character is because anything from the HTML is treated as a string. But in any case, more importantly is we want to change the status to procs.status equals to you've clicked button 1 or something like that. And so that we don't need this down here anymore. So So we're going to comment that out. Okay, so that goes through, which is good. Make sure the other one doesn't go through because we didn't check for that yet. So this is a simple logic where you have something to differentiate between the elements that you're clicking on. Some simple if statement. But this is not a good practice to check for the inner HTML because your graphical interface is going to change. It may not always be one. In fact, it may not even be a button. It may be an image for all you know. Right? This is just for testing in the beginning. So instead of using inner HTML, we might want to use something like ID to differentiate them. ID equals to B1, ID equals to B2, ID equals to B3, and ID equals to B4. And instead of checking for their inner HTML, we might want to use ID to check. How will I get the ID? What's the method to access the ID of the element? Anyone know? Does anyone remember? How do I access the ID attribute? You get the element, which we already got the element. But how do I know what the ID is for this element? The attribute is called ID, right? It'll just be L.ID to see what the ID of my element that we clicked on is. So let's test this out. B1, B2, B3, and B4. So by having a different ID for each item is actually pretty important because your IDs can help you differentiate the different elements that you're interacting with. So in this case, then instead of L.innerHTML equals to 1, we can just go if L.ID, if the element that I'm clicking on's ID is equal to B1, then you've clicked button 1. And then you repeat that process 4 times to identify which button you've clicked on. To make sure you got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. So an important item for you to remember is that you can make comparisons with information on the screen, such as the elements on the screen. You can check for the ID. You can check for their inner HTML. You can check for their class names. You can check for their on-clicks, whether it's an on-click or on-key up. You can check for many things. Whenever you console log something out, you can just make sure that whatever you're console logging out is something that's comparable, like a string or a number. In this case, an ID is a set of characters that we can make a comparison to. So simple if statement here. Now, a very common thing to also remember is you want to keep as much of the logic as possible in the interaction function and not in the UI function. That's always a good practice. The only time you probably, not only time, but like the occasions that you probably want to do logic in the UI is probably just if you have multiple interfaces that you need to, like multiple divs that you have to get rid of and put back. But otherwise, anything that's related to if and else statement that is comparing information, you want to keep as much as possible under the one that doesn't do any user interfaces. So that whoever's in charge of the user interface can figure out how to optimize the user interface. That's a good practice. Doesn't mean you have to follow this way, but it's a good practice. And so on. Now, this is a safe. We have items in a safe that, or we have features in a safe that we have to fulfill. First, we need a combination. So usually what happens in a hotel safe is whoever's there types a combination in, then they remember the combination, and then the next time you retrieve it, you have that combination. I'll use the same combination. But we're not going to go that advanced yet. All we're going to do is, if there's a preset combination, and this safe will always use that preset combination. So we're going to add in two things here for handling these information. We're going to capture what the user has pressed. One is the combination, the preset one. Let's say right now the preset combination is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the actual code that I'm pressing on the screen. The user is pressing on the screen. So without an actual safe, all we can do is show them in the status whether they've done it or not, whether they properly unlocked the safe. So we gotta think of a condition in which the safe is unlocked. So what's a condition that the safe is unlocked? How do I know that the safe is unlocked? If the code is the same as the combo. So we're gonna check for that at the end over here. If the code is the same as the combo, then we are going to update the UI and go procs.status is equal to you've unlocked the safe. You notice I use package over here and not procs over here. Procs is used only if you're updating an interface. Anytime you want to capture information and do comparisons in the information, you would use package instead, because that's always a good, again, it's a good practice to do, so that you don't have to use a simple variable and you can store and save this set of information later. So this logic makes sense, because if what I type in is the same as the combo, then I've unlocked the safe. That's all it is. Now the only problem is my code doesn't change. Oh, I don't know that yet, because I don't know what's happening every time I click on a button. So we're gonna do one more console log at the end, another practice that you want to get used to. And we're gonna log out exactly what's happening in the package itself. It's always a good practice if you have logic to do a console log prior and a console log after. And anything in between, you know something is happening. So prior, I know that I have the click, and after I know something should change. So let's try it out. Press prior, after, right? Prior, after. And I notice my code isn't changing. That's because I'm not changing it. I have nowhere in my script that I'm changing the code. So let's change the code. Right now the combo is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's change it so that when we click on button 1, we add 1 to the code. And we can do that by typing in package.code plus or equal to 1. Or this is the same, or actually the character one, just in case. And this just in case you don't know what plus equal to is. It's the same as saying package.code is equal to package, whatever is inside right now, plus 1. Only for the first button, and not other buttons. So for the first button, I see that 1 is going through. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, whatever. And the ones keep expanding. But I can't test that whether I've won or not. Maybe before we go over, let's actually test if the combo is 1, 1, 1, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. We can see if it actually works properly. So the combo is 1, 1, 1, 1. You've unlocked the safe, right? So that's some simple conditioning right here, where you take the information of the user and make multiple comparisons. I'll let you try on the second button, third button, and fourth button, and see if you can add on to their combination of information. So you try to apply as much of the logic as you can within this function itself. Now there's a problem with this safe. So I'm going to 2, 3, and 4. Now there's a problem with this safe. Without me telling you exactly what the problem is, does anyone know what's wrong with this safe? What's so bad about the safe? Yes. Okay, you can put as many as you want, and you can never reset it. You know, I've gone over the amount of digits, right? How can I ever reset it? I don't have a fail case. I should say that. So either it's gonna equal to that, or it's gonna fail, right? But the problem is, hey, what's wrong if I type something like this? Is this okay? Like either it matches or it'll fail to unlock, right? So what's wrong with this? Well, what will happen if I put it here though? Every time you try to unlock, it'll always say fail to unlock. Why is that?
Because until unless it goes like 1111, it won't match the package.code to go to package.code.
Oh, okay. So because 1 is not the same as 1111. So even if I only have, I'm not done, even if I'm not done, it will still fail to unlock. Right? So if after I fail to unlock, if I say, okay, if I fail to unlock and I'm gonna reset the code, how do I reset the code? Literally go package.code equals to blank. If I do something like that, eventually you'll never be able to succeed because you will always reset every time you press on one of them, right? So we need an indication of when we actually finish. How do we know when we actually finish typing in all the code? The 4 digits, the amount of characters there are. So we need another condition here that goes if package.code.length is the same as package.combo.length, only when they have the same length do we take this if statement inside. So I'm gonna take 47 to 49. 47 to 52 and put it with inside here. Only if the length is the same do I do the check. And when I check for them, if the code and the combo are the same, then they've unlocked. Otherwise, they've failed to unlock this code completely. So this is a 2-tier logic, right? Because first you have to make sure that the information they're given has the same amount, and only within the same length do you do the second tier of comparison, whether the code is the same. And because of that, because they fail to unlock, we can reset it again. And so let's check. We're gonna fail on purpose. 2, 2, fail to unlock, the code is resetted. 3, 2, 3, 3, fail to unlock, code is resetted until we get 1, 1, 1, 1. You've unlocked the save. So these are kind of the logic that you kind of want to learn to build upon, where you make multiple comparisons to create a feature. When you use procs here, that's when you do a UI update. When you use package, that's when you capture the information and try to do logical comparison with it. Other things you would do logical comparison is the information that's being passed over. It could be the element. It could be literally, okay, don't do this, but it could literally be a number. It could be a string. It could be anything. But you would want to use that to do some comparison if you wanted to. So you've unlocked the safe. Failed to unlock, right? That's great. Now we're gonna add on more features. After they fail to unlock 3 times, then they should never be able to touch it again, because security issue, right? So the amount of tries they get is really 3 times. So how will we do something like that? We will have to capture how many times they fail. So over here, we're going to keep adding new information to do more capturing. Tries, it'll start at 0. And you might go, okay, then afterwards, I'm going to do a, if tries is bigger than 3, then they shouldn't be able to do anything anymore. Now, if you want to do a very good practice, you would also add in as another item called max tries, which is 3. The reason you would do something like this is because if someone else comes and configure your code, they know that by changing this number, they change the amount of tries without needing to read through your entire set of code. So these are, aside from just capturing information and storing information and updating a user interface, it's good to make it into a configuration purpose package. And these all come with experiences and multiple test cases. So when do we increase the amount of tries? When do we increase the amount of times they've tried? When do we know that they've tried and failed? When the fail happens. Okay, so package dot tries plus plus. And so we can go over here and do our condition, right? After they fail 3 times. If package dot tries is bigger than package dot max tries, then then the status is gonna equal to, I don't know, what do people say usually when you've got locked out? You've got locked out of the safe. All right, let's test this out. See if we can increase the amount of tries that we have. 1, 2, 2. So tries is increasing, fail, 2, 3, and then you've got locked out of the safe. On my 4th try, I fail and I got locked out. But what's wrong? Is there something wrong with this? What happens?
Yeah, because if you click again, it'll give it another try.
It'll still keep going, right? So after you got locked out, you don't want to be able to keep going because now I can do 1, 1, 1, 1, and you've unlocked the safe. So the placement of where your logic are is important. If I got locked out, what does that mean? Any other thing that I do in this code should not be possible anymore. So what you would do is you would take 54 to 56. This is not the place to put that in, but you put 54 to 56, cut it out, and you probably want to put it in the beginning before anything happens. Paste it here. In the beginning before anything happens. After they got locked out, they shouldn't be able to do anything below anymore. So I can tell my script to stop right here. Exit by typing in return false. That means when this condition happens, change the status, and that's it. The end of it. Even though there are stuff below, ignore all of them. Skip them all. Return false. Skip them. That's what this would go about. So if this goes on, it will return false. If this condition is true, then it will skip everything that's below it. It will change the status and skip everything that's below it.
For that, it's just going on taking an increase again and again, even if
It just goes on what?
it just go like they already failed to unlock, but then it goes on taking entries and it doesn't stop.
You've got locked out the safe? Are you sure?
Yeah, not sure. So if we go on clicking 4 times, fail to unlock, but then it goes on again. You click button 2, and yeah, it goes just.
So tries is 2. Yeah, because you're not done with the tries. 1, 2. You see the 2, 3, and then 4, and then you got locked out the safe. You got locked out the safe. You get locked out the safe.
What does return false do?
So it skips. It will when your function or script sees the word return false, it's the same as saying that's the end of the script.
Oh, okay.
Don't do anything else below. So
Within its own function.
within its own function, yeah. Don't do anything below. So this will only skip everything below line 26 if this was true.
Same thing if you this 4 and then keep going.
It's still you've only done 2 tries. 2 more tries. 2 more. 2 more. There you go. You only get 4 tries.
Because 1 try is 4 clicks. There's a lot of clicks.
16 clicks. I mean, you can track the amount of clicks there are too if you want. I mean, that's up to you. Now, let's go over then. Let's enhance this feature. Right now, we've done the logic behind it. We've done the so-called algorithm and logic behind the safe combination. The feature that's missing is that they can put their own combination in, right? And then they can press save, whatever, and then reopen the combination. But we're not going to go over to that extent. I think it's more important to understand between when we're using procs and when we're using package. So for example, I want to enhance the user experience. I want to enhance the user interface of this. As they are going through these clicks, I'm going to enhance it by giving background color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, aside from status, another user interface as background color. I'll call it BG color. And because it's a user interface item, in the handler, that's where I will detect that. If there is a user interface change for BG color, then I'm gonna update the background color. And I'll build a user interface function. Let's call it change BG color. Function change BG color. And again, good practice, console log out. Make sure you're actually getting the values properly. And it'll just be documents.body.style.background color equals to whatever was passed down to me. So I'm going to enhance the user experience, the UX part of this, by adding in another piece that will change the interface. For example, a very nice user experience is that if they unlock something, maybe I'm going to change the BG color into, I don't know what's a good color for unlock, teal maybe, green. If they fail to unlock, maybe I'm going to change the BG color to red. Right. So I'm using the word procs again because I'm updating the user interface to enhance the user experience when certain parts of the logic happens. Certain parts of my algorithm happens. Because right now it's really bad, right? Because it's just words. But I want to make sure that it's not only words, that there is something happening if I've unlocked the safe. All right, let's see. Oh, it's not working yet because we didn't pass it in it. Make sure you change it. Actually use the user interface functions there. Yay, you've unlocked the safe, right? And then let's try to not unlock the safe. Fail. So I've enhanced the user experience by changing the user interface. And I may want to do more than that because maybe when they are locked out, we will use the BG color gray. Did you know that gray represents out of control? Anytime you use the color gray, it means you cannot control it. There's no control to it. So let's try to get ourselves locked out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got locked out of the safe. And maybe I want to have some fun, and so that whenever they click on a button, instead of just showing that you click button whatever, enhance the experience by changing again the color. Prox dot, oops, aside from the status, it will be prox dot bg color equals to, where are some good ones? Like I'm trying not to repeat, but whatever, I'm gonna repeat it. Magenta is the one I used last class. Can't think of anything though. I know that I know I use aqua. Aqua is a nice name. What other colors are there? Can anyone think of a color on their mind that CSS allows? That's a pretty cool name. That's too cool. I had to use something better. Let's see. Huh? We are that. Lavender. I like that. Is that how I spell lavender? Lavndar. Lavender. Lavender. And what other? Chocolate? Did I hear chocolate? That's best color. Let's go. Is there better be a real color here? No, wait, hold on. No. Oh, it is. Oh, nice. Right, so you can kind of see so this is how you would build an application. You have things that you would change under your proxy to enhance the user interface and experience by changing the what happens in the interface. And you have the actual algorithm or the actual logic that goes behind it. And you never want to put the logic in the interface part because that confuses them. The only time you would do it is if you have to delete and reproduce interfaces. But otherwise, you do your best to keep most of the if and else statements inside your interactive functions. Now, you can make this even more convenient by taking parts of the code out onto another function so that it doesn't look like a big chunk of if and else. But if not, then just remember that this is what you want to strive for. Keep all the logics inside your interactive function. Anytime you need to update the UI, that's where you use the word prox on there. And that's the ideal good practices. So again, a good practice is to make sure you console log everything properly. At least you can see the information flow on your console. The more you understand your own information flow when you look at the console, the better, obviously. Because it will help you understand where it starts and where it ends. Start at this button, console log here, end at the procs, console log here. And anything in between will be console logged out in between as well. Right. So again, if you look at me clicking button 2, start at the beginning with B2 button 2, change status, BG color, then change package at the bottom. So you can kind of see the information flow throughout the thing. For example, then this is very, very good for you because if I'm missing the word BG color aqua, what does that mean? That you're not updating the background color. So you have to figure out where you're going wrong in between this information flow. Any questions on it? Maybe because you're not actual background color for the body.
Oh, okay. And for this one, when I pronounce with the color combination, the spelling is not the same. But
It's not showing because you're changing the status of it. Yeah. Right. So let's go over again. Next week, a lot of your test is going to be building these if statements inside the interaction part. So get comfortable with the if statement and try to understand where information are coming from. All right. Any questions for today's lab? If not, then we start meetings. Last meeting. The last meeting.